that the newly created national government would be able to exercise authority directly over individual citizens, and that prospect alarmed the Anti-Federalists greatly. They preferred to retain the Confederal arrangement for the United States. Nevertheless, the Constitution was ratified, and the authority of the national government to act directly on citizens was established. Fourth, both levels of government derive their authority from the sovereign rather than from one another. This means that, unlike in a unitary system, in a federal system, the state governments don't get their authority from the national government. Likewise, unlike a confederacy, the national government in a federal system does not get its authority from the state governments. In a federal system, rather, both national and state governments derive their authority from the people. In the American federal system, it is reasonable to ask, how do we know which powers the people want the national government to exercise and which powers they want the states to exercise? The answer is they divided it up in the Constitution. So both levels of government derive their powers from the Constitution, which is the expression of the sovereign will of the people. The Constitution does begin with the words, "We the people of the United States," in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, etc., etc., do establish and ordain this Constitution, invest authority in the national government, and reserve this authority for the states. Since both national and state governments derive their authority from the Constitution rather than from one another, therefore, fifth, neither can unilaterally change the relationship. The national government can't modify the powers of the states cannot modify the powers of the national government. Can the powers of the national government be changed? Can the powers of the states be changed? The answer is yes, by constitutional amendment. And it is important to note that the process for amending the Constitution requires action by both the national government and the states. Amendments are formally proposed at the national level by Congress and sent to the states for ratification. So the division of powers between the national and state governments in the federal system can be altered by bilateral rather than unilateral action. Finally, sixth, the regional governments, the states, exist in their own right. The national government can't abolish a state. It's not as if the government in Washington can say, "We've had enough of you people down in Texas. We'll show you don't mess with Texas. You're out of here." The flip side of the coin holds as well. Once the people of a state are admitted into the Union, they can't secede. Despite the common mythology in Texas that says Texas is the only state that can secede, Texas cannot. We fought a bloody civil war about that, if you recall your history lessons. Texas and the other southern states may have thought they seceded in 1861. It took military conquest by the United States to enforce the constitutional principle that they cannot. These points mean in essence that both the national government and the state governments in the American federal system derive their authority from the Constitution. Indeed, the Constitution does divide governmental powers between national and state governments. Specifically, it delegates certain powers to the national government, so that the national government is called a government of delegated or enumerated powers. The theory and the practice of the Constitution means that the national government may only exercise the powers that are indicated in the Constitution. The Constitution reserves other powers to the state governments. So we say that the state governments are governments of reserve powers. In other words, whatever power the Constitution does not give to the national government is power that is reserved for the states. According to James Madison, the father of the Constitution, This was the essence of the federal principle under the Constitution. It was drafted by the Philadelphia Convention. The 10th Amendment, which was added in 1791, explicitly underscores this principle. The Constitution grants authority to be exercised or shared concurrently by both levels of government. That is, both levels of government can do it. The Constitution specifically denies certain powers to the national government, and specifically denies certain powers to the state governments, and specifically denies certain powers to both levels of government.